Hi friends, I want to wrap up my October reading with you, and it was a pretty good month. A little bit slower on the reading front, just because of events that happened this month. This month I did not read as much, even though I felt like I was reading more. No, I was sleeping a lot. Yeah, chronic fatigue, that's the life. So I read 8 books and I had 2 5-stars, which is really awesome because I looked back and I had not had a 5-star since July. July was a really great reading month for me and I had a number of 5 stars. Last month I had a 4.5, so it was close. But I hadn't had a 5-star until this month. So we'll talk more about that. A bunch of 3 stars, a 2-star. So let's get into the book. So I read Alice Feeney, His and Hers. I did vlog my reading of this and we'll link it below. I felt like this was pretty classic Alice Feeney early days. Her first kind of 3 books have, to me, the same basic vibe, even though the stories are different. Twists and turns, connections. The main characters have connections to each other and then to the murder victims, and yeah, it gets a little weird and then wraps up fast pace. That's pretty classic Alice Feeney. I gave that 3.5 stars. And then I read I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. This was one of my 12 and 24 books, and I also read this in the same vlog, so I will link that below. This was sort of what I expected. The first 2/3 of the novel was what I expected, and then the last third I wasn't a big fan. There are certain things with siblings that I'm just not a huge fan of. And some of those things happened in here. So that's all I'm going to say about that because I don't really want to spoil it. The first 2/3 felt like a slow, sunny, breezy day that I was searching for. And then the last third, like I said, just disappointed me. So I ended up giving this 4 stars. No, I gave this 3 stars because the first 2/3 was 4 stars and the last third was 2 stars. So we averaged that out to a 3-star. But to find out more, definitely look at the vlog. So I also read The Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman. I had gotten this from Book of the Month. I am a pretty big Alice Hoffman fan, you know, like I'm ready to read her book. I'd read it more than I'd pass on it. This was and I don't have my copy anymore because I already unhauled it. If that tells you anything. I didn't feel the need to keep it. I'm not going to read it again. It was about a girl that was kind of escaping a cult that she was raised in, and she read The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hoffman and Hawthorne. Alice Hoffman, Nathaniel Hawthorne. She loved the novel and kind of became obsessed with it, and then it got weird, as Alice Hoffman usually does, and usually I'm there for it, but this time I really wasn't. Yeah, that's kind of all I wrote about it, so I gave it 3 stars. And then we got to the 5-star. the first 5-star of the month was And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. This book was on the Women's Prize for Fiction long list. It was beautiful. I read some and I listened to the audiobook mostly, and the narrator was Sherry Markle, and she did an amazing job. So this is written by a Canadian Indigenous author, and we're basically following Alice, who has just had her first child. Alice was raised on the reservation, and she meets and marries a white man, and so she then moves off the reservation and kind of misses some of her connections there and her mom, who passed away. So she's dealing with some grief. She's also dealing with just the hormonal effects of having a baby. She's also dealing with a husband who really isn't there much, I guess. I just was not a fan of the husband. He wasn't supportive of her in some of her struggles, and really was also trying to, it seemed like, cut her connections to her people, her family, her friends back on the reservation. So I wrote that it was a raw, intimate look at new motherhood. There are aspects of mental health in here, intergenerational trauma, and grief. And it's hard to say I loved it, because it is pretty gut-wrenching what Alice goes through, but it's amazing. It's a very memorable book. And if you like literary fiction with a little bit of weird, this is for you. And then I read a couple of Agatha Christie books in preparation for a live show I did with Emily at Novel Novels. I'll link the live show below. This was for Emily's project, Agatha for Alice, which is in memory of her friend and one of our favorite booktubers, Alice of Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, who passed away earlier this year. And for that, I read The Ordeal by Innocence, which is a standalone Christie novel, and it's about a family who is made up of adopted children, 5 or 6 children, and the one brother is charged with murdering their mother, and when he's in prison, he dies of pneumonia. And after this has happened, someone comes to light that could provide the brother with an alibi. And so then the whole family is trying to figure out who killed their mother. I liked this. I didn't love it. I think part of it is it seemed a bit forced. And what else did I write down? Like the person who comes forward as the alibi for Jacko, the brother, kind of forces his way into the family, it feels like, and just randomly these people are going to trust him with their secrets, I guess. So that part of it felt forced. And then there were parts that I liked and parts that I didn't. So yeah, it was about a 3-star for me. And then I reread for the same live show. I reread The Mysterious Affair at Styles. I had read this, I think last year. I had read this last year and given it a 5-star. For some reason, I read it this time and gave it a 4-star. Who knows? It may have just been me. I also read this physically the first time and then listened to the audio just this time. And so, I don't know. And how do y'all do that? When you reread a book and your rating changes, do you average the 2 ratings? Or do you just go with the new rating? I don't know. This is about, again, another house full of people. There's all these connections, like figuring out the connections on how everybody's related to each other. But it's basically the story of a stepmother and her much younger husband and her 2 stepsons. And she controls the money, and then she ends up dead. And they have to figure out who killed her. And enter Hercule Poirot. Now, this was the first novel, Hercule Poirot's first novel. And so he didn't play as major of a part, I feel like, as he typically does. But again, I've only read a couple Poirot novels, so I don't know if that's a consistent thing. But the ones I've read, he plays a much more prominent role. But I do recommend this. It's a very good book. All right, and so then I read in the vlog that I just posted on Sunday, I read a couple of books, one of which, actually both, I mentioned in the vlog, that I took back to the library before even finishing the vlog because my brain just wasn't working. I read The Haunting at Bonaventure Circle by Jamie Jo Wright for book club. I did not like this book. It was a 2-star. I do a few rants in that vlog on that book, so I will watch the vlog if you want to know my thoughts on that. I don't recommend that book. And then I also read my other 5-star of the month in that vlog, and that was Human Acts by Hong Kong, and it was translated by Dodie Smith. This book is about the Gwangju student uprising in, I think it was the 80s in South Korea. It is written in the second person, which usually doesn't work for me, but it did. It worked masterfully. It was different perspectives and different timing. So some of it was in the thick of it, of the uprising. Some of the perspective was after, what happened after. So Hong Kong shows us this whole, the during, and then after in, I think it was 8 or 9 chapters. And it's very well done. I felt like it made the most of every word. It was heartwarming. It was heartbreaking. It touches on grief and trauma. It touches on torture and violence, so be aware of that. It has mentions of suicide, and some description of sexual assault. I think it's all done in in the form that it needed to for this story, and to talk about a true part of history that I think not many people know about, especially those outside of Korea. I really liked the relationship building and the ties between the chapter, what ties all the chapters together, and the family ties. I mentioned in the vlog that the chapter from the perspective of the mother, wow, it was amazing. So highly recommend. And then that's it. That was 8 books. Did I talk about 8 books? Yeah. So a little bit slower of a month for me with reading, but to be expected. And just to give you a little sneak peek at what I'm currently reading. So I'm still working on One Person, No Vote by Carol Anderson. I haven't picked this up since my 2 vlogs ago. Earlier in the month. I had originally started this in my His and Hers and I Captured the Castle vlog. But we're into nonfiction November, and this is one of my first reads that I plan. Then for nonfiction, I also, by the time you're watching this, will have started my buddy read of Jesus and John Wayne, How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation by Kristen Kobes Dumez. I am buddy reading this with 2 of my friends from book club, and I've heard great things about this, and I'm really curious to get into it and discuss with them. I also started in the vlog, this last vlog, I started Disappearing House by Ali, trying to get that without the glare on it, by Ali Malineko. I heard about this author from Leandra at the TBR 0. I am halfway and really enjoying it. A house appears, the kids go into the house, and yeah, it's spooky. And then I also started one of my 10 Through the End of the Year books. This is The Other Emily by Dean Koontz. I will link that video below. I'm linking lots of stuff below. And I have 2 Dean Koontz on my shelf, TBR, counting this one. So I really want to see, is this an author for me? I read one of his books eons ago and remembered liking it, also remembered it was weird. So I don't know if I'm still gonna like this or not. We are, let's see, I'm only like 30 pages in, and we're following, what's his name? David. He runs into a woman that reminds him of a girlfriend that went missing. And that's kind of, I'm just getting an intro into those stories. So that's what I'm currently reading. What did you read in October? Did you have any 5 stars in October? Let me know in the comments below, and also let me know how you're doing. I hope you are all doing well, and I will check in with you soon. Bye.